Hey there, my name's Niandra and I make a lot of Mercy guides. I often get asked if I want her to be buffed, and although I don't think she's in a terrible state, there are some changes I'd like to see. Starting with number 1 and, you guessed it, more base healing. Either 55 or a flat revert to 60 healing per second. In my opinion, Mercy currently fits as neither a main healer or off healer. She's this weird in-between. She can be very strong if you run her with Anna, Baptiste or Moira, but then your team lacks a defensive ult. In these compositions, Mercy gets to really push damage boost, which is one of the main reasons you run her currently, but also needs to shot call a lot so her team doesn't play into high impact ults like Graviton Search. When Mercy's paired with Lucio, Zen and even Brig, it's a bit of a crapshoot. Most of the time you can tell that it's just slightly not enough healing. You might be thinking, well Niandra, maybe it's just your playstyle, maybe you're too damage boost oriented, and that is something I constantly ask myself. The thing is though, I've had a lot of matches where we're struggling on Mercy Lucio, I go, say Moira, and we immediately start doing so much better. I've also seen this happen with the enemy team or when I'm in the tank slot. Why should I bother putting in so much effort to make Mercy Lucio work when Moira Lucio is that much easier? Secondly, if I have to barely use damage boost to make her work with off healers, I personally just don't really see the point, and not just because I'm a Bluebeam addict. I don't want to play Mercy as a heal bot when her healing is so low, and others like Moira and Baptiste can cover that role so much better. Also, I don't mean to imply that Mercy and off healers can never work together. Having various allies that self-heal or an enemy team that isn't coordinated can take a lot of pressure off her, but it's also not hard for them to make swaps that do counter it. I have had matches where we run her with Zen, I get a damage boost a lot, and it's so much fun being the main healer I used to consistently be. But as we initially leave the hero select screen, I know what kind of risk we're taking, and in some situations, we can't afford to. For example, if you're defending 2CP, losing one fight due to lack of healing can easily mean losing the whole point. When Mercy was initially reworked, she was a must pick for a long time because she could offer everything. Only after the healing nerf did other main supports start to flourish more. In my opinion, healing is not what made Mercy mandatory, but I understand that they had to hit something hard after she had been dominating for months. If we buff Mercy's healing, there is absolutely the possibility of her being too good again, but the game has changed so much in the last year that, I think we'll be okay. Keep in mind, she'll still be single target with no burst when the last two metas revolved around AoE healing, something that has increased greatly since Overwatch's release. We have hero pools and the experimental card coming up, so at the very least, why not entertain the idea? I'd happily take nerfs in other areas if it meant I could consistently main heal again. To be fair, Mercy can easily get gold over Anna, Moira and Baptiste, but often, it honestly feels bad like my second healer isn't doing their job properly. I used to feel like Mercy's consistency and being able to heal with a single button press indefinitely made up for healing per second being low, but again, the game has changed so much in the last year. Honestly, I don't think Mercy is a bad hero, just a bad main support, and traditionally, heroes without defined roles struggle. Mercy has been surrounded by or competing with characters who have received a lot of unnecessary buffs over the last year, which has made her fall behind somewhat because balance not being good enough is like a staple of Blizzard games. I've said before that I do personally believe power creep has been a big issue in Overwatch for a while, and if Blizzard addresses it, say nerf other supports and damage, that Mercy will slowly feel better without actually having to touch her, and therefore potentially contribute to power creep even more. Finally, Blizzard have been tackling problematic heroes with nerfs, and hopefully if they continue down that path, Mercy will eventually feel a bit better, even if she doesn't get a healing buff. The alternative is to just make Mercy a pure off healer. You could reduce healing outside of her ultimate even further, but make it very high during Valkyrie so it acts similar to Transcendence. A small part of me wouldn't mind this, because I do think Overwatch needs more off healers, but I also feel like Valkyrie would be a lot more boring at 6 seconds and only used for healing. I would just miss mass damage boost way too much. Number 2, a third option for Guardian Angel prefers beam target called Hybrid. Personally, I have the setting off, so that means I can fly to ally B while beaming ally A. When the setting is on, Mercy will always fly to whoever a beam is on. I want an alternative version where off acts like on if I use GA while not targeting anyone, as that currently does nothing. There are a few Mercy streamers out there who play with it on, and they're able to do a lot of really cool tricks with it, like they'll play in pits or off the edge of maps. However, I've also seen allies of these players die because Mercy has to briefly cut the beam to reposition. My issue is, most of the time, I don't really need to play underneath King's Row if I'm good at positioning safely around it. However, I'm always going to have some level of beam downtime with this setting, which is something I try to cut down on as much as possible. For example, if I fly to a corpse for res, I want to fully push my beam while doing so, especially healing. The beam downtime is minuscule, but so is the breakage when you activate ult, which is something a lot of people complain about. In my personal opinion, off is better in general, while on excels in niche situations, and unfortunately they just don't happen enough for me to justify using it, but I would love to be able to get the best of both worlds with a possible third option. 3. Just some sort of buff to res during Valkyrie. I don't really mind what we get, but I would love a little extra because the official in-game description is abilities are enhanced, but it doesn't really touch resurrect. Granted, the movement and health regeneration absolutely make a lot more reses potentially viable, but I don't know, a part of me feels like that doesn't really count. You probably couldn't buff both resurrect and healing, but I think this is a great alternative way to help her out. I've referred to Valkyrie as a Swiss Army knife due to both revolving around utility, and I'm always interested in exploring smaller tools to add on. The most powerful, but probably too strong buffs I can think of are resetting the cooldown of res upon activating ult, giving her a second resurrect, or decreasing the cast time by various amounts. I think shaving off say 0.25 seconds could be something. There's so many ideas you could play with here, and honestly I'd even love something tiny like increasing the cancellation range from 5 meters to 7 or 10 because the increased movement makes them easier to self-cancel. Hell, honestly, you could give me a ring like Lucio's AoE that shows the range of res during Valkyrie and I'd be fucking ecstatic over it. Number 4, little tweaks to Valkyrie. I want to talk about 2 things in this section, and the first is to get rid of your beam briefly disconnecting from the ally you're healing when you activate Valkyrie. I understand that it's a transformation ult and the trade-off is Mercy can't be stunned out of it, but you know what, I want to be selfish here, give me both. Like, it's just not fun to be punished for beam breakage. Alternatively, if a non-disconnect is too hard to program, a tiny burst heal upon activating Valkyrie could potentially be another option. Second of all, and I mentioned this in a video last May, but I want the ability to cancel Valkyrie early by choice, say hitting Q a second time. I want this because 15 seconds is a very long time, and early cancellation would make the bad or mistimed Valkyries a lot less painful. I've said before that failed Valks are a lot more noticeable than other ults used poorly due to length. Like, my favourite comparison is Tracer, who immediately goes back to what she's doing if she misses Pulse Bomb. Not only that, but early cancellation would also really benefit the good Valkyries. Sometimes I make use of Valk's entirety, sometimes we win the fight fast before my ult ends, and in those situations I don't want to heal my allies, I want to wait until Valkyrie is over so I actually get ult charge from it. Being able to cancel my ult would be great in situations like this and allow me to start building my next one earlier. I don't think Mercy getting Valkyrie quicker would be a problem whatsoever because it's not the most impactful ultimate in the world and other main supports are also extremely fast at building theirs. Besides, I feel like self-cancellation would make sense from a design perspective, like Valkyrie is part of Mercy's suit, it's not a separate entity. Just in general though, I feel there's a lot of small tweaks you could do to Valkyrie to make it feel more impactful without really increasing its power. In the past I've talked about how I'd love to see more visual and audio feedback. Ideally, you should be using Mercy's ult for mass damage boost, but sometimes healing Valks can be pretty effective. It's just barely noticeable, especially compared to healing Valks that fail, which you can just see from the kill feed. And last of all, increasing her on fire rate. This one's fairly minor, which is why I put it last, but I still think it's worth mentioning because her rate is shockingly low, to the point where she's pretty far behind everyone else across all ranks according to Overbuff. To get on fire, you pretty much have to be doing everything. You gotta heal, damage boost, res, probably in Valkyrie, maybe on point for those max ticks, and if you do manage to get on fire, it's really easy to lose again due to struggling with retention once your ult is over. She gets a lot of points for rezzing, but can now only do it once every 30 seconds, so it feels more catered towards her old state. I think some simple increases for both healing and damage boost could be a real nice push that makes Mercy just a little bit more satisfying to play. As she says, it's nice to be appreciated. And that's all from me this time. Let me know what sort of buffs you guys want to see in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, feel free to check out my Patreon where I do Mercy VOD reviews for $5, and have a nice day.